Okay, so now we're going to discuss Herod. Herod is famous in the Bible. There were 3 of them, in fact, all that had to do with the time of Christ. So there's a lot of times there's some confusion about it.
Right.
So we're going to get to it. The first one is Herod the Great. That's the guy we're talking about right now. This is the guy that killed all the children in Bethlehem. Herod the Great. The second one after him is Herod Archelaus. Now Archelaus was his son, and he was so bad that the Romans actually had to take him out of power and stuck him on an island somewhere. Yeah, he was really, really bad, so bad. Wow. And the third, and Archelaus was the king when Christ came out of Egypt, and then Joseph was warned in a dream not to go to Jerusalem because Archelaus might kill him too, and so they went to Nazareth. That was who was in power there. And then the third one is Herod Antipas, known as Herod the Tetrarch. And now they've taken away the power of the king. I guess the Romans learned with Archelaus, no more Herods need to be king anymore.
Right.
So they made him a tetrarch, and but he is the one that was responsible for killing John the Baptist. Was the tetrarch. So that's the 3 guys. But the Herod we're dealing with right now is the first one, Herod the Great.
It doesn't sound so great.
No,
sounds like a bad guy.
He's not. They call him the Great because he was responsible in a lot of building projects and a lot of great things, and even helped the Jews in a lot of different ways. And so he's known as the Great. But he wasn't really a great character.
He did a lot of grand things.
He did, yeah, which is why he's known as the Great. But he wasn't really great. No, not at all.
Yeah.
He was a bad guy, and he was a jealous guy and a very suspicious guy. And Herod talked about number 1.
Yeah.
Herod cared about Herod, nobody else. This guy was a nervous guy. And he didn't want anybody, he was worried that anybody could be against him or.
Usually, what happens is when you're a bad guy, you're kind of looking over your shoulder.
Right, and he was responsible for killing his wife,
doing a lot of bad stuff,
and his own children, and all kinds of different stuff. Herod did. Really bad guy.
Probably rightfully so to be suspicious.
You're probably right. But so he was exceptionally suspicious.
Okay.
Not to mention, during this time, the Parthians were trying to overthrow the Roman rule in this area. So Herod was nervous about that too. So we had all this stuff going on.
Okay.
And then he hears about these guys coming into town saying, "Where is he born of the King of the Jews?" Right? This is going to upset Herod.
Yeah.
So Herod wants to know, where is this guy that's supposed to be King of the Jews? And I want to know where he is now. Right?
Right.
So he calls the staff meeting. We get the staff meeting in Matthew 2. And it says, starting in verse 4, And when he had gathered all the chief priests and the scribes of the people together, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. So they said to him, and they gave him the prophecy, in Bethlehem of Judea. For thus it is written by the prophet, But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are not the least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel. So there's the prophecy. So that's what they tell Herod. So Herod says, okay, so there is supposed to be a king, and he's supposed to come out of Bethlehem. And these guys over here are saying it's now.
Yeah.
So Herod isn't satisfied yet. He has to call the Magi in. So he calls the Magi in and says, I got to have a meeting with the Magi. So he calls in, I assume, the leaders of the Magi. And then Herod says, this is Matthew 2, verse 7, starting. Then Herod, when he had secretly called the wise men, in other words, he didn't have a public meeting. He just called them into his chamber. Tell me what's going on here on the side, you guys. So he called the wise men and determined from them what time the star appeared. So he wanted to know from them, when did this star appear? And the wise men, and he sent them to Bethlehem and said, Go and search carefully for the young child. So Herod says, well, I'll give you my information. You give me your information. My information is he's from Bethlehem. And so, that's what he said. But also the next clue here is now the child is called a young child, right? Not the babe anymore. Now he's young. When you find a young child, because he asked them, when did you see the star? And they must have told him it had been a little while. And so now he's calling them the young child.
Do you think this was, when he called the wise men, that was the Magi?
Yeah, that was definitely the Magi.
So then he says he sent them to Bethlehem.
Right, because remember they came in and said, where is he born King of the Jews?
Yeah.
Because they are following the star.
Right.
Now, this star is not a star that we would think of as a star. You maybe could follow it, from east to west or whatever, but you couldn't follow it like to a city or a place, right? So what we get translated here, star, is not really a star. It's some kind of a phenomena deal that they understand and know. I mean, we've got all kinds of examples of this, like the fire by night, cloud by day thing. A lot of different examples in the Bible. It's not a hard thing to overcome.
So Herod looks like he's sitting here trying to make buddies with these guys.
Yeah, that's right.
Nice.
Yeah, I'll give you my
them.
information. You give me your information. We all want to worship him anyway.
Yep.
It's all good. And so he says, go to Bethlehem and search carefully for the young child. Now, we got to understand something else about the wise men, because they've stopped in Jerusalem. So, the star has led them to Jerusalem and then stopped. They can't follow it anymore. So they went and said, where is he who's been born king of the Jews? Because the star is here over Jerusalem. So they think he's got to be there somewhere, right? So he says, search for the young child, and when you have found him, bring back word to me, that I may come and worship him also. That's what Herod says. Now here is running the old flim-flam, right?
Right.
Because Herod does not want to worship the child. He wants to murder him. But he's telling them, come back and tell me. When they heard the king, they departed, the wise men. And behold, here's the next clue. The star which they had seen in the east went before them. Okay, the star is starting to move again. At first, it just led them to Jerusalem. That's because they had a meeting with Herod they didn't know they had to make. Right? So the star led them to Jerusalem. After they had the meeting, they came out, and behold, the star started to move. And it says it moved till it came and stood over where the young child was. So this star, whatever this thing is, went right over the very place where the Christ is. And it says young child again. When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceedingly great joy. And when they had come into the house, right, house. We're not talking Migdal Eder. We're not talking manger. We're not talking Bethlehem. No. We're talking house, right?
Baby.
Young child, house.
Right.
They saw the young child with Mary his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented gifts to him, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Then, being divinely warned in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed for their own country in another way. So these are the guys that are dream interpreters. Now they had another dream. Don't go back to Herod, because this dream is telling them about the flim-flam.
Yeah, right.
And so they went out the back way and went back home. But here you have the gifts, where people get these three king idea. But it's likely that the Christ child had many gifts.
It's also interesting that they were warned in a dream, being known for interpreting dreams.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting.
Yeah, exactly. So these gifts that they gave him, the Holy Spirit chooses to tell us these three gifts.
Right.
Now, it's likely he had a lot of gifts. But it's these three gifts. And the reason we get these three gifts is because this is the very essence of who the Messiah is and what he came to do can be said in just these three gifts. This is fascinating and fun. The first gift was gold. Gold is the treasure of kings because it was prophesied that the Christ would be king. Frankincense. Frankincense is the incense that the priests used in the temple during their duties, because it was prophesied that Christ would be king and priest over the people, right? And he was given myrrh. Myrrh is a compound that they use in embalming the dead after they die, because it had been prophesied that the Christ would be king, priest, and die for the people. Wow.
Yeah.
That's why these three gifts are here. It's the very essence of Christ. And also we have there again that Jesus is called a young child two more times. Okay, so these magi go back home, and that's the last we ever see of them. They sneak in and they sneak out. One more thing I wanted to mention. Christ is presented with gifts in the book of Revelation also. Only in this case, he's presented with gold and frankincense. There's no myrrh. And the reason is, of course, because the dying part is over.
Right.
Right? So, fascinating, huh?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so now we go to Matthew 2. And it says, now, when they had departed, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, arise, take the young child and his mother, flee to Egypt, and stay there until I bring you word, for Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. When he arose, he took the young child and his mother by night and departed for Egypt, and was there until the death of Herod, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the Lord through the prophet, saying, Out of Egypt I have called my son. So we have 3 more times where he's called a young child. And also, once again, we see a Joseph instantly obeying. He has the dream, he wakes up from the dream, and gets up right then, packs up, and leaves right now. This is a cool guy.
Yeah.
You don't hear much about Joseph except for just these parts right here we just said. And then you don't see any more of him anywhere.
Right.
Because he's played his part in the biblical scene. And so Joseph is one of those really cool guys. Now we get to Herod. Herod is mad because he knows the Magi just went out the back on him, right? When he gets the word they took off, now he's mad. Then Herod, when he saw that he was deceived by the wise men, was exceedingly angry. And he sent forth and put to death all the male children who were in Bethlehem in all its districts from 2 years old and under, according to which the time which he had determined from the wise men. You see? He asked the wise men when they saw the star. And now Herod is putting to death 2 years and younger. We don't know what time the wise men told him they saw the star. But Herod is trying to make sure he gets the king child dead.
Right.
That's what he's trying to do. So they may have told him a year, 6 months, who knows. But he says, I'm going to take everyone 2 and under.
Right.
Now, a lot of people think hundreds or thousands of children were killed. But estimates are quite low, actually. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 30 children were killed because Bethlehem was very small. That doesn't lessen how
tragedy,
horrific
yeah.
and terrible this whole incident was. It was unbelievably bad. So I wanted to give a little timeline because you can see that there's different things going on here. The very first thing we get is Mary visited by Gabriel. Then we have Joseph also told about the Messiah in a dream. And then after that, we have a 9-month gap where nothing goes on because she's pregnant, right? They're still in Nazareth. We go on for 9 months. After that, they travel to Bethlehem for the census. The Christ is born at the Migdal-Eder. The shepherds are visited by the angels. The shepherds come down and see the baby, inspect the baby. And then there's another 8-day gap. The next thing we see is that Christ being circumcised on the 8th day. Now, he was born in Bethlehem. But there's plenty of time. I don't know if this is what's happened, but there's plenty of time for them to travel back, all the way back to Nazareth, to have the boy circumcised there, if they wanted to. So he may have still been in Bethlehem, or he may be in Nazareth. I'm just pointing out the possibilities. So Christ was circumcised on the 8th day, which was the law. And then you had something called Mary's time of purification. So in the old Jerusalem days, in the old times, when a woman had a baby, she needed what was called her time of purification. It was a 40-day period. And after that time, she was again purified. So that would have been 32 more days that are elapsed from the 8 days we already had, right? So now we're 40 days down into this thing. And then now Jesus was presented in the temple. See, Mary could not have presented him in the temple when she was not pure. That's why they had to wait the 40 days.
Gotcha.
Now they're in Jerusalem. It's 40 days after his birth. They're in Jerusalem. They're no longer in Nazareth, being presented in the temple. Then we have another amount of unknown time while they're in Nazareth that the wise men show up. So the wise men show up. The star in Jerusalem, the star starts to lead them again. It's most likely that the star led them north to Nazareth, not south to Bethlehem. You see? And so they went to the house in Nazareth and found the young child and gave him the gifts there. That's probably what happened.
Yeah, wow.
We don't know that for sure.
Yeah.
I'm just pointing this out because this is a possibility, and it's fun to learn all this stuff.
Right.
And it opens up your mind to all kinds of new ideas and new possibilities. That of course, we're not changing the Bible, but you know what I mean.
Of course not, yeah. Except for just reading what you see on the
It
Christmas card.
Yeah, except for the card. Yeah,
that's where we're going.
Exactly. So then, after the wise men, Joseph was warned to flee to Egypt,
Right.
which he did. Then the babies are murdered in Bethlehem. Then we have a 3 or 4 year gap after that. Well, the Christ is in Egypt because it was 3 or 4 years later till Herod died. And then Joseph got the dream to come back now. And so when Joseph comes back, now the Christ is somewhere in the neighborhood 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, right? He's a little baby boy now, a little boy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when he's warned, don't go back to Jerusalem because Archelaus is there. So they went back to Nazareth. And then the next time we see the Christ. He's 12 years old, and they're traveling from Nazareth. So they still live in Nazareth even when he's 12 years old. And they're traveling to Jerusalem. That's where the last time we know exactly where he was.
Right.
Was at 12. So
cool.
So that's pretty fascinating. So that pretty much ends that part of the whole deal. But I wanted to talk a little bit about Hanukkah and a little about 12 days of Christmas, because we hear about these things all the time, but people don't understand them.
Right.
It's thought that Hanukkah is the Jews' Christmas, right? That's what everybody says.
Yeah.
But apparently not you. You didn't answer that one too
No.
quick. But anyway,
No.
Hanukkah is not the Jews' Christmas. It's the same month as Christmas. It's just coincidental. It has nothing to do with Christmas. But Hanukkah, what it means, the word means, is to dedicate. It's known as the Feast of Dedication or the Feast of Lights. It's mentioned in the Bible only one time in John 10:22. It lasts for 8 days long. And the reason you have a dedication is because way back in the day, you had a guy named Antiochus Epiphanes who was over the Jews at that time. And he hated the Jews because Antiochus, what he was trying to do was he was trying to make everything Greek. And he wanted to make the whole kingdom that he was in charge of to follow all the Greek ways and the Greek goddesses and all that stuff. And the Jews would have nothing of it. And they wouldn't even salute him when he came by. So he really hated the Jews. And so what he did was he went to their temple. Well, he started making things. He made the Torah against the law and all kinds of stuff to torture him, Finally, he went to the temple and he sacrificed a swine on the temple. And then he sprinkled blood and water all around the temple of swine's blood and water. And this was known as the abomination of desolation and a desecration of unbelievable proportions if you're Jewish.
Right.
It's the worst thing you could do.
Yeah.
That's what happened. Well, this caused such an uproar that a few years later, you had something called the Maccabean Revolt. And they finally threw him out of there. And they got him out through a number of different events. But so then they cleansed and rededicated the ceremony. And it was such a happy time that this was named and called Hanukkah, the dedication. And that is what the Jews celebrate. Now, it lasts 8 days because the story is that they had oil in the lamps for the rededication, only enough to last 1 day. But by a miracle from God, this oil lasted for 8 days for the dedication at that time. And that's how come the dedication today is 8 days long.
Right.
And that's your Hanukkah story.
Cool. Very cool. What about this?
12 Days of Christmas.
Days
We
of
got our
Christmas
last thing. I
stuff.
wish we could sing the song. If you knew the song, you could sing it. 12 Days of Christmas. Everybody loves this song. There actually is a 12 Days of Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something that came about way back in 567 A.D. This was the Roman emperor. There's the dude right there. The Roman emperor Justinian. Nice looking guy. This guy, well, everybody looked like that back then, I think. But this guy decreed that there would actually be 12 days of Christmas, and that they would run starting from December 25th, and it would go until January 6th. And that was the 12 days of Christmas. Now, a lot of things really sticks with us, right? Some of it is wrong, and some of it is right. And the fact that we have Christmas, that stuck with us. But the 12-day thing did not stick. We just have 1 day, right? 25th. It's too bad, because it's kind of fun if it would.
12 days, 12 days of Christmas.
Yeah, I'm just kidding around.
Instead
but
of just a song.
Right, yeah, instead of just a song.
That's about all we have, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Apparently, Justinian loved French hens, turtle doves, and laying geese because, no. I was kidding around. A lot of goofiness here.
Yeah,
but
having a good time.
We're having a good time, but it's a very serious subject. A lot of great information there.
Yeah.
Nothing to argue about. If you don't agree with some of it, that's okay.
That's right.
We just want to give out the information because the information is there.
Yeah.
So we want to give it out so people can be expanded. They can grow.
Well, yeah, go search it and look it up.
All this stuff is easily findable by anybody.
You know what I found really cool on this thing was that Micah prophecy.
About the Migdal Eider.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah, most people don't know that's there.
That was a new thing for me today.
Yep.
That was awesome.
Tower of the Flock,
Yep.
Migdal Eider.
That's really cool. Stuff like that is cool when it kind of opens up your eyes on it.
It sure does.
And the significance of Christ being the sacrificial lamb here is the important thing. Unblemished.
Yeah, exactly right.
So.
Unblemished and following the Lamb of God.
That's right.
Following the exact pattern of the lambs that were to be sacrificed in the temple, following the exact pattern, literally being born in the same stalls.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
It is.
Yeah,
it is
very
really,
awesome.
Really
it's great
cool.
stuff.
Yeah.
Tune in for more. We'll have more stuff all the time, all kinds
right.
of different stuff, and we'll just keep throwing out the information, and hopefully everybody can grow and develop with
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Mike.
Sure.
Appreciate that. If you want to follow us more, just check out our Facebook page. Just search Spiritual Investigators. You can get a hold of us there. You can send us an email at spiritualinvestigators@gmail.com. And tune in, see what kind of goofy stuff we got next time.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.